1 in 5 Americans suffer from chronic pain. Many are now using CBD for relief.
Activists are hoping pot could be legalized nationwide by the end of 2019.
When you look at premium cannabis, the Illinois House approved legalizing recreational marijuana.
Welcome to The Budding Report, a weekly show centered around all things cannabis. Please join us in welcoming our host, Charles Horton, and his co-host, Melissa Nasits, as they share the latest in cannabis news, conduct interviews with top leaders in the cannabis space, and promote some of the latest in science and innovation. And now to our host, Charles Horton.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Budding Report. It's a great day to Dallas. We're not freezing. It's nice and warm. Melissa is had work today, so she's not going to be joining us. But we have a fantastic guest host. You've seen her on the show many times before, and she helps us out so much with guests and everything else. And man, she's just such a female entrepreneur on the go, has her hands in everything, including Canna World Expo. Jessica, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, Charles. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic as well, and I know we're going to have a fun show today. Dr. Shaw, how are you doing? I think you're in Phoenix still, right?
I'm going to try to stay in Phoenix as long as possible. This is probably the best weather of the year right now. Why people leave the north and come here and then take off in the summer.
Yeah, I don't want to be there during the summer. 120 isn't good for me at all. Chris, how are you doing today in Austin?
Doing great here in Austin. It's warmed up, beautiful day outside after the polar vortex of a couple weeks ago. So we're ready to have a great show.
Excellent. And we did have a guest drop off the show, and sitting in her place is going to be Matt Carr, a good friend of mine for 20 some odd years. Matt, how are you doing today?
Doing phenomenal. Super excited, honored to have me here. Looking forward to a great show.
Excellent. And our guest today, Shayda Torabi, CEO and co-founder of Restart CBD, and she's going to have a lot of good information on our news article today with Delta 8. And that's first. What we're going to do is talk about the news and Delta 8. Chris, you going to take the lead on this one?
Sounds great, Charles. So this weekend, the New York Times came out with an article that was pretty well read nationally about a derivative of THC. So normally it's Delta 9 THC that is what gets people high. It's the psychoactive compound in cannabis. That's what's illegal federally. Well, with the Farm Bill in 2018, the federal government made it legal to use all parts of the hemp plant except for Delta 9 THC. That was still illegal under the federal law. So what did some creative entrepreneurs do? They found a way to create Delta H THC to extract that from the plant and then spray it back on cannabis that has Delta 9 extracted from it. So then you can create a product that still can get you high, but will also be federally legal. And in Texas, it's legal because it has less than 0.3% THC. That's where the state law interacts with the federal law. So on the way in here today, I probably knowing that Shayda was on here and we've talked before, I probably should have stopped at her store, but I was in a hurry. So I just went by my local CBD store and picked up, I don't know if we can see it on camera. I'll try to get it close. It's not working well. But maybe you can see me holding up a little bud that I got this morning. They were down to the very, very end of their Delta H THC flower. So they told me they had to just give me kind of shake and I could go to a different store to get bigger buds, but I just didn't have time. But it smells like cannabis, smells like regular marijuana. I haven't actually tried it yet today. It tastes like it a little too. But yeah, so I mean, this is legal. This is booming in Austin and around Texas. I'm sure Shayda can give a little more input on that too with her experience at these CBD stores.
Well, Chris, before we go on to hear from Shayda, tell me about how testing is going to go. I'm sitting here thinking from our last episode, they're testing for THC. If you have any THC whatsoever in your system in some states, you could be considered to be under the influence. Does the test distinguish between Delta 8 and Delta 9?
No, I don't think that a normal test for what's in your body would distinguish that. But because you could, if you are testing positive for THC, it gives you a really nice legal argument now that there's no way for your probation officer or for the jury or for the prosecutor to know that that positive THC was from an illegal substance as opposed to a legal one. Now, that doesn't mean that you should drive on these things, because they still could intoxicate you. You need to be checking with yourself that you have the normal use of your mental and physical faculties. But it is not illegal per se now to be testing positive for THC, because theoretically it could have been a delta 8 THC creating that. So if you're getting on probation and you get a positive test, your lawyer may be able to make a creative argument to get you out of trouble.
Well, thank you. Shayda, talk to us about your experience with Delta 8. Maybe not personally, but if you want to.
Sure. Well, kind of on that subject, I do own a retail location here in Austin, Texas. And as you know, the room has already kind of identified, it's very buzzy. It's not federally legal to really be selling or possessing or consuming Delta 8 at a federal level. However, certain states, like Chris identified, and Texas in particular, has found the loophole essentially. And using the article that's being referenced in this discussion from the New York Times, it says just that. It says that it's a loophole. And so I think it's very exciting from my perspective as someone who really loves cannabis, that it's, a new cannabinoid. And I think that with that, the research is coming of what these new cannabinoids can actually do for consumers and for their bodies. But I think the, kind of the main buzz with Delta 8 is that it's very related to Delta 9 THC, and it can produce this buzzing effect. Unfortunately, we see consumers every day who are just being properly, or I should say improperly, educated on cannabinoids in general, that when Delta 8 hit the market, it also fell into that, confusion on what is it going to do in my body, and how is it going to make me feel? And I was sharing before we started recording, so I'll reshare for the audience, I'm someone who consumes a lot of cannabis in general. I like to say that I'm a consumer before I'm a business owner. And so everything that I want to, share with my consumers is something that I want to be comfortable with myself. And we carry a lot of Delta 8 products, like Chris highlighted. There's flour, there's gummies, there's chocolate bars. I sell a lot of vape cartridges. I think those are really popular right now just because smoking is the most bioavailable way to consume. But I was testing one of the products that we are putting on our shelves, and it was 50 milligrams of Delta 8. And I took it at about noon, and I was to say, high is an understatement. I was extremely high for all of yesterday. And so I think that, there's a time and a place for which I want to feel that way. I think consumers need to be properly educated that, yes, this is a THC. It can make you fail a drug test. It can make you feel high. You should absolutely, be aware of what you're consuming and how much you're consuming. On the flip side, what I want to mention too about Texas, from my observation of just being a Texan and operating a cannabis brand in the state, I think you're watching how the government and the local state is trying to combat it by, issuing out these smokable bans, which Texas is currently in the middle of dealing with. And so I think from a law enforcement perspective, law is trying to decide, what is this plant? How are people consuming it? Whether it's an employer, a cop, pulling you over because you're driving impaired, it creates a whole slew of other challenges that this industry needs to realize and address.
Dr. Shaw, you have any medical knowledge of Delta 8? Any opinions on this?
Medical knowledge is fairly limited. I did some searches earlier on PubMed, and there aren't really any studies specific to this. However, back in 1995, Dr. Meshulam, who's the godfather of THC out of Israel, apparently did a study at Hebrew University that involved 8 children with various blood cancers, the purpose of which was to see if they could stimulate some kind of appetite, post-chemotherapy. And there were profoundly positive results that the appetite was stimulated and vomiting was completely prevented. And I think back then the rationale must have been, what are we looking at? That was 25 years ago plus. The rationale being, well, there must be less psychoactive properties to it. So I think there isn't much known yet. Maybe for some individuals there would be less because it does have less of a binding affinity to the CB1 and CB2 receptors than Delta 9. However, as we just heard, it potentially can be very, impairing and intoxicating, just like THC Delta 9 is.
Thank you. And Jessica, how about you?
Well, this is actually very exciting because it kind of does create a loophole. We have with this Delta 8, this could actually potentially be that road into legalization that we've all been looking for. It is a loophole. The plant hemp is approved. You've got that farm bill, all parts of it. This is a part of it. And I know we are kind of working in the gray field and talking about that. However, it is in existence. It's out there. It is part of the plant, technically. And maybe, like I said, this could be that foot in the door to actually finally get this back to where it should be.
That's a good point. Absolutely excellent. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, having a medical grow in the state of Oklahoma, we see these items come up on our test results, and it's super exciting to learn a little bit more about them. It's going to help us, I think, in our sales pitches when we go to dispensaries and talk to them. And the more information we have on any of our products, the better. We see the information on the test results, and I want to be able to share that with all of our customers. So this is awesome.
Good information and good progress forward. Like I said last time, this is a great time to be experiencing and being involved in the legalization of a plant that's been illegal for, 80 years or something?
Too long.
We're going to go off to a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to be here with Matt Carr, CEO of Bud Options. Be right back.
Hello, coming to you from the outdoors where I do my heat training, and I did my repeats on the hills. It's actually pretty empty, but it's kind of close to 90 degrees. So that's when I squeeze in whatever I can, but I'm actually here to share what Simply Start, Simply Satisfy is. So this organic hemp oil, this is the serum Simply Start, and you can take it twice a day or once. I already took both of them in this morning, so now it's lunchtime. Real quick and easy, yummy, delicious, 30 calories. The other one is Simply Satisfy. So it's a spray and also 3 sprays. You could do it once a day or twice a day. Again, I did it this morning. I'm doing it now at lunch. It helps you take care of your health and wellness. So learn more about them. Remember, 3 simple changes on how you can incorporate into your life. You can learn more at the link below. So stay safe and keep moving, keep training, and take care of your spirit, mind, and body.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Budding Report. We had a guest drop out at the last minute, and a friend of mine who is in the industry happened to be here to watch and to go to lunch with me afterwards, and I'm really happy about it. I'll kind of give a non-industry background and then let Matt give the industry background. But Matt's been a good friend of mine since, I think, before he was 15 years old. One of my employees' friends was best friends with Matt, and Matt was hanging out around me all the time. And then I went to mentor him, and we played in the stock market some. I'm a big believer in, putting money into things like stocks and stuff and assets. And so Matt and I had games going on, and he would, I remember the big one, he would say, Charles, you gotta get into American Airlines while they're in bankruptcy. And I'm like going, no, the equity shareholders never get any money in bankruptcy. And he made a ton of money on American Airlines. I've been listening to people about Bitcoin too. I don't know if you were one of those for years. I remember people saying at $2 a share, you got to get in on it. And I'll tell you, that's I'm very regretful now that it's $48,000 that I didn't get into it. Matt's worked for me on and off over the years. He set a goal to. I had a goal of being a millionaire by the time I was 30 and came right at it. He set a goal of being a millionaire by the time he was 25. We'll let him talk about that. But but in the meantime, he's started numerous businesses. Currently, he's doing a medical grow in Oklahoma that I want to talk a little bit about. And he also has started a new business called Bud Options, and he's doing what entrepreneurs do. He sees a need that he says everybody is out there knocking on doors trying to sell or buy their medical marijuana, and so he's putting together an answer for that. So with that introduction, Matt, welcome on.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Start off by telling us a little bit more about your medical grow in Oklahoma. I've heard a lot of great things and how it's really an ideal model using capitalism, no limits on the number of licenses, and it's easy and cheap to get in.
Yes, that's one thing that blew me away back over a year ago. I went up and visited some buddies in Oklahoma, and we talked about possibly getting into the industry. They showed me what they had going on. We wanted to keep it a little bit mobile. That way we had all of our equipment that can be moved around. We put it in 58 or 53 foot long reefer trucks, which are just refrigerated, insulated trucks.
Reefer not having anything to do with cannabis.
No. It's just a refrigeration truck.
Okay.
But we were able to get those up and running. We have full grows going all throughout them. And I mean, they hold 150 plants.
That's great.
Yes, being from Texas, I've always kind of looked at the industry as a little, taboo and a little different. So whenever I'm up there in the mornings and I go out and open the doors to our trailers and I'm looking at 150 plants, it's amazing. It's a little sketchy still, but it's amazing. And the best part about it is we do help people. We help patients from all over the state, and that's one of the reasons why I got into it.
Tell us about the licensing process in Colorado, because it really stands out to a lot of entrepreneurs as kind of the model way to do it, possibly.
Yeah, no, it's. I think the licensing there in Oklahoma is very business friendly. They want businesses to be successful with their setups. Basically, you put in your information, all the legal information that you need from your business, bank accounts, anything that they require, you send it over. They'll get you set up within 2 weeks to 4 weeks. If there's any issues, they are very easy to get along with. They'll send you an email saying, hey, we have an issue with this paperwork, get it fixed. You have 30 days to do so. Just send it back over to them. They'll get it taken care of, and you're good to go. As soon as you get that license confirmation, you are able to start growing, and then get your business rolling.
How's business?
Phenomenal. We've done a great job. We overdid the numbers that we were expecting. Starting out, we were saying, hey, we'll get about half a pound a plant, because we knew that none of us were experts in it. We ended up over 3/4 of a pound on most of our plants, some up to 1.5 pounds. And this is all indoor grow. So the numbers were there. We were excited. We have been adding on to our equipment to add more space. That's another one of the benefits. You can grow with your license. You can grow 10 plants. You grow 10,000. You just got to make sure it's all documented and recorded. And once that's done on a monthly basis, you're in the clear. Make a difference in somebody else's life and get them the cannabis they enjoy.
And now your next venture, which you're going to do simultaneously, is Bud Options. Why did you choose Bud Options? And tell us about it.
Excellent. The reason I got Bud Options, I was sitting with a buddy. I told him come over one night, another tech guy, and I said, I have an idea. There's an issue in the industry right now as far as business-to-business wholesaling. And I told him, we can fix this. Let's get it done. We'll make a platform to where people can have their own little online store for online payments, online marketing, in a way that it hasn't really been done in the past. Everybody, it's new still as a whole. So the industry, looks at it as a little taboo, and, we want to curve that. We want to make it better for everybody and make it easier. And the reason we came up with budoptions.com, it was literally $12 on GoDaddy. So, and when I saw the website, I was like, I'm buying this regardless.
Oh, yeah.
This is a phenomenal freaking URL. So we got it, got that one, and budoption.com. So if, I saw those and I was like, nope, taking them. So that was our name. That's how we came up with the name. And then there's questions that he was having that night. We were sitting down having a couple beers, and he was like, well, what about this? What about this? And I was like, yeah, you got to see the big picture. Look down the road. This is what we're going to do. So he was great at devil advocate, giving me the questions that I needed to help really mold and form what is now budoptions.com. And like I said, it's just the ultimate business-to-business marketplace.
I can't wait. I've been looking at it, but I can't wait for it to be busy and active, and me being an investor and getting some money from it. Let me throw this out to our co-hosts. Any questions, co-hosts?
Yes. We had a segment, Matt, maybe a couple months ago about Oklahoma and it being kind of the Wild West in terms of the marijuana industry, because you have basically a very conservative political environment that doesn't believe in regulation, which actually may be something that's perfect for this cannabis movement. Can you talk a little about the landscape there, politically, culturally, what it's like to have this like almost non-regulated market of something that you almost would never expect a place like Oklahoma to be leading in?
You have a phenomenal point, and the Wild West is an understatement. It's going every which way. You definitely want to stay tuned to what's happening in legislation on definitely a monthly, weekly basis, but it's all over the place. There's so many things that the laws are so finely written that, you have people doing things certain ways, and then you got others trying to make sure that this industry sticks and stays within the state, which I don't see it going anywhere, but it's definitely the Wild West. And that's where the idea of Bud Options came about, was, seeing how chaotic it can be on some of the issues that I think could be a lot easier and simpler to be done. So it's definitely eye-opening. You see people now in Oklahoma, in a state that extremely conservative. Whenever you walk into a dispensary, you'll see a range of customers from, the 25-year-old guy that, looks like he'd probably do pot. And then you got the guy or the lady, at 65 coming in to get the medicine that does work for her. So it's fun seeing the difference in number of customers and the demographics of customers, and then also just seeing the whole industry as itself. It's been wild.
So thinking of Oklahoma, the first question I obviously have for you is if Joe Exotic is going to get involved in this.
I'm sure he's probably plenty involved. Probably got a few plants out behind the Tigers cages. But hopefully, I don't know if he's going to be getting out soon or whatnot. But if he does, I'm sure he'll be jumping full-fledged into it and getting his farm back up and going with more than just cats.
I was pretty sad that night, I'll tell you. He's got the limo going outside jail ready to get that pardon, and then the pardon doesn't come, and I kind of felt bad for him there.
Yeah. Well, funny story. We are my grow is literally just down the road from Waneywood, where Joe Exotic's farm was at. My guy makes sure he points it out every single time that we're driving by. Oh, down that way. If you turn this way instead of this way, going to our farm, you go to Joe Exotic's farm. And I'm like, oh, cool. Very cool.
So, Joe, this is totally off topic, but what's the other guy's name? Was it Joe? He took he built another brand new, really nice place right by in Thatcher, I think it is, right by the casino. And then he got his license taken away, so he can't open and show the animals. So he's turned it just into a movie facility. But I mean, that's entrepreneurship. You figure out how to make it work. Absolutely. Well, I'm off subject. So any of our other co-hosts have questions?
I have a question. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but just in my conversations, specifically observing how things have rolled out in terms of medical versus recreation. So knowing Oklahoma is a medical state, that means you need a medical card to purchase. My observation is it's fairly easy to get a medical card if you're an Oklahoma resident, but I recently heard it's not actually enacted, but I heard it's coming. Oklahoma as a state is going to allow for day pass medical patient cards that would allow for Texans in particular to come across the border, purchase. Obviously, I'm not advocating leaving the state with it, but I heard that is something that they're going to do in terms of tourism as well.
Yes, one of the big things they have on the legislation as of right now is the ability for out of state medical card owners to come in and purchase with those medical cards in the state of Oklahoma. And I think that'll be phenomenal for all of our small business and big businesses alike in the industry. But it's going to be, that is one thing that they have talked about. And so we'll see how it goes. I haven't heard much about day passes as of right now, but it's already in legislation for the medical card owners of other states to come in and get it. And like you said, on the, I love the way Oklahoma has legislated their ability to get medical cards. I think they did a phenomenal job, and I hope other states adapt it. If you need one, go get one. We know who's going to be smoking. We know who's not going to be smoking. You pay a little bit every year on an annual basis to refine that, redo the card. So I think it's phenomenal, and I think other states should definitely look at their practices on how they got it set up. I think they can do better as a whole, the OMMA as a whole, but they'll get there. And it's a new thing, it's a new industry, but they've done a great job so far, and it's only getting better.
Chris, I got a question.
I heard statistically that, really quick, that Oklahoma has more medical licenses or medical patients than the state of California has medical patients, which I think is just very interesting.
Blows my mind too.
So the attorney industry and the billboard industry are really doing well in Texas. If you drive on the road to Colorado, every other sign is a billboard from an attorney wanting to represent you when you get caught. But I've also heard talk, Chris, maybe you know, maybe you don't, that if you have a medical marijuana card, you can't have a concealed handgun card. Do you know if Oklahoma's doing that or not?
I'm not sure whether Oklahoma is doing that, but yes, absolutely. In Texas, they never want drugs to be mixed with the guns. And even there's a law that most people, you're allowed to, without even a concealed handgun permit, to drive with your gun in your car. But you can't do that if you're committing a crime otherwise. And as long as cannabis is illegal, if you have marijuana in your car, whether it's medical or not, it's illegal to carry that weapon with you.
You know, I did not know that. Thank you. That was a good new lesson for me. Jessica, how about you?
Oh, my. That's wonderful news as well. Yes. I would actually like to know, you have a unique growing system in that you're actually using the refrigerated trucks. Have you considered expansion into your other areas, or even perhaps creating systems and a whole new methodology for other growers in other states as well, utilizing what you have created?
Absolutely. One of the things that with our reefer trucks, you can do a variety of things. I mean, you can take them out, you can drain the water system, no problem. Take it, if somebody needs a dry room, we have all the AC units and heating units that are in there already with dehumidifiers. So it can easily convert into a dry room. You're running out of space on your grow down the road. We'll just pull up, park the truck, put your products inside, and you're ready to dry. Just let it sit there and cure for the next week or two. Not only that, we kept it mobile for that reason as well. Some people, just like we did, we originally said, we're going to start with 50, 100 plants. And then all of a sudden we're sitting there at 200 little clones sitting all around. And we're like, well, we got to do something with them. So building quicker and mobile was one of the best things I think we could have done. And like I said, keeping the versatility of when you're building them out is key. And then, we're looking to possibly sell some of these trailers down the road as well for people. So.
Always kind of like Jessica, always looking for a way to make a buck in the industry,
Absolutely.
Right? That's called entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
Well, we've gone a little long on this segment, so we're going to turn off for a commercial break, and we will be right back. Matt, thank you for joining us, and for all of our guests, if you want to contact Matt or any of our guests, please go to our website, thebuddingreport.com, and we have all contact information on all of our guests there. Thank you. See you right back in a minute.
Coming to you after our hike that we finished. Buster exercises 3 miles. Today is a recovery day because he did 8-mile hike over the weekend, broken up into 2. But what I want to share with you is this company here called Simple Changes. I learned about them and I absolutely love the concept. It's wellness, community, and organization. So as you can see here, I love the wrapping. I love purple, and it comes with 3 products. So I've been trying them out. First, it's the hemp oil spray. Then it's the hemp oil dropper and the hemp oil ball. So I'll be trying all of these out. I've been exploring them, exploring the ingredients. I met with the team on Zoom. Really neat product. And I love the fact that they also want to incorporate healthy practices. So they come with a little journal and something about simple success guide. So, simple changes.
You're so entertained, huh? Papa. Hey, ready? Papa.
Hello, everybody. We are back with the Budding Report today, and we have another special guest with us. You are really in for a treat, and I have thoroughly enjoyed what she has been contributing to today's show. Please meet Shayda Torabi. Her company is Restart CBD. She's the CEO and co-founder of this company, which is a female-run education-first CBD wellness brand. She's got quite a lot of experience in this as well, and so you're going to be enjoying it. She's been named one of the most influential women in WordPress and cannabis reformation in Texas. She is also the host of the podcast To Be Blunt. Let me repeat that. The host of the podcast, To Be Blunt. And her company is Restart CBD. So let me get started here with a question for you. You launched Restart CBD in August of 2018. It was before hemp was legal officially in Texas. What led you to get involved in the industry?
Thank you for having me. I'm really appreciative of these opportunities to get to help advocate, especially with shows that are based in Texas. I like to always share from my perspective and how we got in the industry, my story. And that's, something that I think resonates with a lot of people. We all have a personal experience with cannabis. And for me in particular with CBD, I was about 25 years old. So this was 6 years ago. And I was hit by a vehicle as a pedestrian in downtown Austin and fractured my pelvis, specifically my sacrum, in 2 places. And so as a, mid 20-year-old who was confronted with chronic pain, I was presented with traditional recovery methods. So thankfully never had to actually have surgery, but dealing with chronic pain led me to physical therapy, of course, steroid injections, pain medication refills. And I was going through recovery for about 8 months before my mother actually introduced me to the idea of CBD oil. And I, always like to highlight, we got exposed to CBD before there was a market. So there was no podcast host talking about that. There were no retail stores where there was someone educated to communicate on what this plant was and how it would interact with my body. And so very blindly, just by, being a fan of high THC pot, essentially, I blindly started taking my mother's, homemade concoctions. She was making me sublingual oils and topicals. And within a couple of weeks of introducing cannabis and CBD in particular into my lifestyle, I started noticing not only was my pain dissipating, but the pain management was in my control and my hands. And so that was something that our family became very familiar with, very confident with. But obviously from a public facing perspective, I couldn't come out and say CBD helped me manage my pain. There was no way to communicate that. I was working a corporate tech job. And so to, connect the dots took some time, and it really, lined up for me and my family when my little sister actually helped kind of put our heads together. And I always mention kind of our story coalescing together because I love cannabis. My little sister is a former University of Texas collegiate swimmer. She's also a current Under Armour sponsored athlete. And so for her, she had never touched marijuana. She'd never touched high THC because she was always getting drug tested and had this notion that this was going to make her feel a certain way. And so I think from our both perspectives, kind of introducing this conversation into Central Texas, people just really resonated with our story. And so people, will highlight, oh, you were so smart to get in the industry when you did. I didn't know the industry was going to blow up or become what it was. I'm just a very, passionate Texan who loves to market and communicate and help distill complex ideas down for consumers to understand, and saw an opportunity where I could help communicate this plant and this love of this plant through my own personal recovery journey. And, that's kind of how we launched Restart CBD. So it's been a wild ride because we launched before it was even federally legal, especially before it was Texas legal, and have learned a lot of lessons operating our retail shop in Central Texas over the last, 3 years.
Fantastic. You say you're a education first CBD wellness brand. What does that mean?
I think education is really important because, there's so much information out there and so much misinformation, especially with the unregulation of cannabis. And what I was observing when I was, just a consumer in the marketplace, I always, try to reflect on my experience of traveling to legal states. So yes, while I reside in Texas, I've had the privilege and opportunity to go to many legal states and observe their legal markets from a recreation perspective. And at no point in those discoveries or those journeys or those purchasing opportunities was anybody ever educating me on this is your endocannabinoid system. This is what THC does versus CBD. These are how the cannabinoids work in ratio with your body. And so I just, like most other people were like, I like weed. Weed makes me feel high. High is good. Like, I like that narrative. And then when you kind of transpire that into how Texas was unfolding, you had consumers who were very curious. They didn't know what it was going to make them feel like. They heard that CBD was, derived from weed and it was going to make them high. And so you had consumers kind of coming together with all this misinformation, this past stigma, this hearsay, and trying to help kind of change that conversation really starts at the point of education. And I always like to highlight as well, we're all influencers and we're all influenced. And so when you can help make, the mother of 3 who walks into my storefront more confident and comfortable with CBD, she's going to have a better experience, both using CBD for her and her family, as well as being an advocate. And so for me, education goes hand in hand with advocacy, which goes hand in hand with how we're going to actually impact and change this plant for the better. And because I'm a born and raised Texan, it starts in my backyard, and that's Austin, Texas. And so just helping consumers make sense of this plant, have access to high quality because it's unregulated. Maybe this is news to some of the listeners, but just because you buy CBD from Sprouts or Walmart or Whole Foods doesn't qualify that brand actually has quality ingredients in it. And so we spend a lot of time helping our customers understand how to read labels, be comfortable knowing what your dose is, what your frequency is. Obviously, we're not medical professionals, and getting the FDA involved, it's very murky waters because people are making really bold claims like, hey, this helps with sleep, anxiety, pain. And I'm here to say and advocate personally that I have experienced those benefits in my own life, but helping connect the dots for consumers. I will always share with my consumers, I say, I'm your cannabis Sherpa. You have to go and, face the mountain yourself, but I'm here to help guide you. These are different consumption methods. These are different types of doses. These are different types of products, but ultimately you as the consumer have to go on that journey. It's your body. And so anything that I can do to empower the end user to be comfortable with what is going in my body is a job well done. And so that's where we like to exist.
Well, Shayda, it's so wonderful hearing from you and how passionate you are about these issues and how clearly you explain them. So it is no wonder that the Texas Hemp Awards awarded you Best Texas Hemp Educator and Advocate. Could you just tell our audience a little more about the specific types of activities that you're participating in to educate people? I mean, are these political circles, or where are you really going and meeting these people that you're educating?
Yeah, thank you so much for the recognition and opportunity. Of course, it's something that, again, I stand by the fact that every conversation is an opportunity to influence and help someone see this plant in a different light. So I'm very active both in the retail sense and the community of just helping our consumers and customers understand, but as well as the political conversation. I think that prior to getting professionally involved in the industry, I did hold a corporate job. And like so many of my customers who are very frustrated with these, cannabis laws, they say, well, we want change. How do we get change? And, part of change is raising your hand and saying, I'm an advocate. This is what a cannabis consumer looks like. Contacting your state, contacting your senators. I know prior to COVID, getting involved in, these different organizations in the state of Texas, like Texans Against Marijuana and Texas Normal and Texans for Informed Information. And so there's definitely different groups that are out there that take a stance that want to help not only educate consumers, but then take that information back into the, the policy and the advocacy. And so for me, I am recently joined a board for Texas Hemp Coalition, which is a nonprofit that specifically helps advocate at the policy level. It's a board that is run by a lot of different leaders in the space, ranging from testing to retail to research to manufacturing and processing. People don't realize how immature this industry is. And so, yes, there's the how do I help consumers understand, but how do I also help these people in these positions to help inform the law understand? And so, when I first started, I was kind of a nobody. Nobody knew who I was. But through the work that we've been doing just in day-to-day efforts, I now have a position where I get to lean into more of those political conversations. And I don't take it lightly, because obviously Texas has a lot of opinions and it's a very conservative state. But I think everybody that we've interacted with is just really, you realize that they're just uninformed and they don't know what they don't know. And so anything that I can do to help them, realize, again, this is what a cannabis consumer looks like. That's where I like to exist and help advocate on behalf of the plant.
Well, a follow-up question to that then, Shayda, is when are you going to make your announcement to run against Dan Patrick for lieutenant governor of this state and make it so that cannabis is finally legal?
Oh, do I have a Chris Perri endorsement, I should say?
I'm very impressed, and I think that somebody like you could do a darn good job on the campaign trail, because a lot of the things you're talking about in terms of education those are how you do political messaging. You have to say it 3 to 7 times. You have to meet people where they are. You have to not be forcing your philosophies down their throat. So I think you'd be wonderful at it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I am not opposed to it. Again, I think like most people in the industry, we're just trying to figure out where we can make the most impact. And for me, it really was making that decision. Hey, I now own a public company in this space, and I'm a public figure. And so I have to have an opinion on this. And so I don't want to just be someone who sits on the sidelines and hopes that other people are advocating and making change for this plant. I want to stand up and help make change too. And so trying to take care of that in the, respective worlds that I exist in, but obviously ultimately helping influence other people to realize we all have the power to help make this plant more accessible, more visible, more, regulated for the benefit of the consumer who wants to be consuming this plant.
So I guess moving on from what Chris said, I think Texas could probably use an AOC equivalent. So that would be another endorsement.
Thank you.
Specific to the question I have, your exposure to different states and their own challenges and advantages of working within the cannabis space. What do you specifically see as benefits or challenges when operating a brand in Texas?
That's a very loaded question. Yes, I think the more conversations I have, the more I'm uncovering. Obviously, Matt gave us a lot of good information about Oklahoma, just our neighbors to the north. I think, we talk a lot about legalization versus decriminalization. And as somebody who was a consumer first, obviously, I just wanted weed to be legal. And so I think when you're looking at building a brand from that perspective, you obviously want national brand recognition. You want to be able to expose your brand to the most people. But after I've started observing how certain states have unfortunately, gone legal, it doesn't always benefit the small business. And so I think that's where I've observed, hopefully Texas takes some cues from some of these states. I'll maybe be a little controversial. I think while Oklahoma has opened things up, they have a lot of room to grow. I don't think that just opening it up for a free economy is, always sometimes to the benefit of the industry, versus you look at states like Florida who have limited licensing. They require vertical integration. It's very difficult if you're a brand and you want to grow. So that would mean for me, just to give you guys some context, if Texas decided to implement vertical integration requirements, that would mean not only do I have to grow the plant, I have to then extract the plant, I have to process the plant, I have to manufacture it, then I have to retail sell. So right now I'm just a retailer. I don't know if I have the funds, the infrastructure, or the runway to go and be all those things. And so looking at how do I grow a brand for the long term, I think it's just being smart and paying attention to what's happening, follow the trails. Another thing that I've been kind of observing that's maybe unpopular opinion to some of my consumers, they're like, well, weed's going to be legal soon, especially with all these different political things happening externally. It's like, no state has gone recreation without going medical. And so until Texas has a proper medical program, which is not happening in this legislative session, I'm sorry, it's not getting any more robust. That means another 2 years, which means 4 years from now, maybe we'll start to see a proper medical program, which maybe would mean that we'll get a proper recreation action out of it. So, it's just watching what's happening, paying attention to these states, hopefully learning lessons. I just think consumers and a lot of people getting in the industry don't realize these discrepancies from state to state and even city to city. And so as a brand, you just have to kind of observe, well, this is the space that I can play in. This is what I have access to. How do I move forward? So bringing up the smokable ban, that's a huge challenge for us here in Texas. Bringing up the federal ban on smoking in the mail is a huge challenge, especially for us here in Texas. I ship smokable products out of the state every single day. And now I have to go educate and re-educate my consumers on why or why not that's the case. It trickles down. And so you obviously can only control so many things. But yes, these are the topics that I very much love to cover on my podcast, to be blunt, because, as a marketer, we're all marketing, whether you're an educator or you're a doctor or you're, a processor, like you have to educate, and education is part of marketing. And so being able to confidently understand what's going on and then execute on that is difficult, but that's something that I like to obviously navigate as best I can.
Well, Shayda, you've been a fantastic guest, as has you, Matt. Thank you both for being on. Again, you can find both of their information on our website, thebuddingreport.com, and contact them, do business with them. That's what we're here for. We love to make connections. Please join us next week when our guests include CBD chef. I love the chefs. Mary and Catherine Blackwell and Chelsea Mulligan of the Open Door franchise. So it looks to be a good episode as well. We'll have some great news, of course, to discuss, and we will see you next week on the Budding Report. Thanks for joining.